we're going to start with a video. So this really encapsulates what we're all about and where we will be up to in a couple of weeks' time. Oh, no. So our story started with a phone call. About 6 years ago, I got a call from a friend of mine who rang up out of the blue and he just said, I need your help saving koalas. And my response was, of course you do, as you get these random calls. And it was a small group of like-minded residents that were worried about a 400-metre stretch of koala trees in Rifle Range Road on the western edge of Bangalore. And these trees were about 30 years old, something like that. But that 400-metre stretch of trees actually has, I've seen 5 lots of koalas just along that stretch of trees. So that at that point, we wanted to know if those trees were protected. So that led to more calls. So I rang Byron Council and from the very beginning, because I didn't know anything about koalas then, so I got in contact with Council and I wanted to know if those trees were a koala corridor or listed as one, which they weren't at the time, but they are now. And then what happened then is Byron Council told us that there'd been only 2 recordings of koalas in Bangalore. And that was just through council. That wasn't through other state government or Friends of the Koala or anything like that. That was just council. So then we worked with Byron Council and we put together a flyer asking people to record past and present any sightings. So I got it printed up. I let a box drop to all the properties in Bangalore. There's not that many properties, and they got inundated with a whole lot of these sightings. And all of a sudden, the residents of Bangalore were actually, wow, we've got koalas here. I didn't know we had koalas here. And I said, well, do you look up? Oh, no. So all of a sudden, we had a community that was actively getting involved because suddenly we knew we've got koalas and we need to protect them. So then we started doing, I did more letterbox drops about doing some weed control because it was really weedy at the base of these trees. And we'd do it on a weekend and we'd get like 20, 40 people turn up. And they'd bring their kids and they'd rock up, they'd just walk up with their spades and all their tools and stuff. And then we're going, hang on a minute, we're onto something here. So from the very beginning, we were working with Byron Council and we thought, well, let's look at doing a corridor. And then I went to Lismore Council and I said, which way should we head? And Lismore Council said, don't head to Lismore because there's too many koalas, there's too much overdevelopment, there's not enough trees. So then Byron Council actually then got a grant, and then we helped them advertise it. And we had 85 people turn up, and the local radio, ABC, contacted us, and then the TV stations. And then all of a sudden we started getting contacted by all these people that thought, I want to join your corridor. And that's where it began. And so fast forward 6 years and we've got this thriving community group that wants to do everything that they can there. I get contacted all the time. People will say, I've seen this koala. And I said, well, is it healthy? And I get them to send me a photo and it's like, you need to get onto the koala rescue line, which is Friends of the Koala. So I give them the details and stuff like that. So we've actively working with Friends of the Koala. And Linda here, who is L2, she works with Friends of the Koala and she works with us. So we do like workshops together and stuff like that to try and educate people and involve people. Next slide, please. So our vision, and as you can see there, we've got kids. So we have lots of kids. We've got lots of generations of people. 3 generations of families are coming to these plantings and stuff. And we're getting them from the babies. So those babies are the future. Those kids are going to be the future for saving our koalas. So our motto, we're about educating. So that's through workshops, involving them in citizen scientists and all that sort of stuff. Involving them, so that's tree plantings, events, workshops, etc. And inspiring them to be active in helping us save our koalas. And so we're helping communities restore, connect habitat into corridors for koalas and other wildlife. Next slide, please. So that's it, Adam Zampa, the Australian cricket player. That's his property. So the goal is to create an extensive wildlife corridor that will connect existing sections of fragmented habitat into new habitat. And we're also trying to, by doing that, by creating these corridors and getting them, we're trying to get them away from urban threats, which is us, and dogs and car strikes and stuff like that. Next slide, please. So I forgot to say, I've got lots of pictures in here because I think our story can really only be seen by the areas of plantings that we're doing and the scale of it. So next slide, please. So our mission, also our long-term mission, is to expand corridor from Byron Bay and surrounds up towards the Queensland border, so out to Tenterfield and down towards Grafton. And that is a direct response. After the fires, we got contacted by all these people going, we want to plant here, we want to plant there, we want to help, we want to do something. So that's why it's such a big, expansive area. And slowly, bit by bit, we're getting there. We might not get all the way to Tenterfield, but we're going to do our goddamn best to do it. And at the same time, we want to create community champions and get other groups going as well. Because we've been contacted especially since the fires, but we've been contacted by people going, we want to do what you do. How do we do what you do? And this is in Queensland, in New South Wales, in Victoria. I've had like people in Taree, do you plant down here? Not quite. Or down in the Blue Mountains, or down in the South Coast and Sunshine Coast just a little while ago. So there's actual, out there, the community wants to do something. So we want to tap into that. We want to help other people do what we're doing. So we're working on this concept of empowering other people. Next slide, please. More pictures. And, I was just going to say that's me pointing, directing. That's a very important pointer. I don't plant trees, I point. Next slide. So our project, with the support of NGOs, such as I4, who've supported us for a long, long time, and other NGOs, and government agencies as well. So we're working with local, state and federal government. We plan to plant 500,000 by the end of 2025. And we can do that because I've done the sums. It's not some lofty goal that's not going to happen. We can do it. We will do it. The only thing that's going to stop us is the funding. And I'll sell my kidney if it helps. Although I need a lot more money than that. We're also going to, I'm talking about the community champions, we're working on this, and we've done this for a little bit, is with funding from WWF, a feasibility study about a network community action concept. And that's the one I was talking to you about, where we want to help other community groups and people do what we do. Because last year, WWF came to our mate Pat Rafter's property, and the board were there and Dermot was there, and I was explaining what we do, and Dermot said, "We've got to clone you, Linda." And I thought, well, that's a scary thought. But then that's when we thought, well, look, funny you should say that, we're actually thinking about an idea. So it's sort of like an e-learning thing, because my involvement was right at the very beginning. So all the stages you have to go to, right from the very beginning, all the boring stuff, like, registering as a charity and whatever. And we're a registered environmental organisation, and that took 18 months. So it's teaching, it's a thing that people can do. It's like, okay, this is all the stages I have to do. So that's the concept that we want to look for that. So next slide, please. So my thing was about how we engage landholders. And the most important thing, and the thing that we're really good at, is actually engaging the community. So you've got to build and nurture all these relationships, because if you don't have relationships, then you can't connect with people, you can't connect landscape, you can't get things done. So from the very beginning, we connected with the local community, and they just won't let us go. They just hanging on. They're thriving with it as well. So we continue to build and nurture these strong relationships, and we do it through plantings, workshops, events, etc. We also then, once we do those plantings and stuff, we get a database. So the database is really important. So whenever you do an event or whatever, you get a database. You then continue to keep the people involved, because you keep telling them about events and stuff like that. And then also social media, local press, e-newsletters, emails. You've got to continually engage people. And when you engage them, they keep coming back to you. Also, where am I up to? Okay, and also, so you're building strong relationships with community groups. So for example, that's the Lions, Rotary, CWA, local preschools and schools, community banks, etc. All of those we've worked really closely with. So in the beginning, before COVID, Lions used to come when we had a planting, and they'd put on a sausage sizzle. And we'd have vegetarian options as well, obviously, clearly. And also, as I said, we engaged from the beginning with local council, but not just our council, all the councils. So we're working with all the councils across the Northern Rivers. We're also with state and federal government agencies, with land care groups, with rescue and rehabilitation groups. We're engaging with NGOs and, hang on. Yeah, and also with the councils, with our local council. We built relationships from the mayor right the way down to the depot, because we were putting up signs for koalas on the roads, etc. And if the depot knew that we were working with council, they'd leave the signs up. Don't tell all the councils this, because... but the most important thing is the bush regen people, because we obviously, we've just done 82,500 trees this year. Plus, we've done another 25,500 trees in fields, because I went for every single flood recovery grant there was. So we had 4 properties that were so heavily impacted down in the Richmond Valley that they lost everything. And we're talking they were underwater for a long, long time. And they wanted to plant again. So we promised that we would help them. Every single property that lost trees, we've replanted. And so my bush regen people, they don't speak to me anymore. But it's over 108,000 trees we've done this year, which is a huge amount. Thank you. And it's exhausting work. But you've got to build those relationships with, so the bush regen, the nursery, so because the nurseries are helping us, guiding us what trees and everything like that we should be using, and all your supplies and everything. So next slide, please, and it's probably a picture. There you go. So this is an I4 planting at Hillary's. So, because a lot of the plantings that we've done in the last 3 years is with COVID. And so our very first planting we did with I4 up at Binnaburra, and that was in the middle of the drought, 2019. We planted 2,600 trees, and we had 180 people turn up. And there was 70 cars we had to park. Lucky it was a property, because imagine trying to park 70 cars in a street somewhere. But those people came from everywhere. They came from Brisbane, Toowoomba. They came from Victoria. They've come from Sydney. They've come after those horrible fires. We had our first planting in February, and so it was raining. And we had people that came from Port Macquarie, Uralla. We had 2 United Airlines hostesses that actually flew in from San Francisco just to plant trees, and then they went back again. So it's amazing. And we get a lot of people from the Gold Coast. And then, because I'd say to these people, they'd turn up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and the plantings were at 9 o'clock, and I'm going, what are you doing? And they're going, we actually can do something here. We actually see that we're making a difference. And there's this college, Somerset College, in the Gold Coast hinterland. So they've come down with busloads of high school students twice this year and once last year just to plant trees. And that's what we love, is if you get them when they're young and you can get them to then, be responsible and act and do something about the crisis we're in right now. Next slide. So as I said, we've done 240,000 trees since 2019. The majority of that has been in the last 2 years. So last year was just over 81,000. And that's been through COVID. So we had to, where we were getting huge amounts of people turning up, we had to limit the numbers. And August last year, we had to plant 11,000 trees. It was in lockdown, so we could only have 5 paid contractors, myself, because I'm paid, and our admin person. So the 7 of us planted those 11,000 trees on those properties. So don't let COVID be an excuse to not get things done. Because there's always, and that's a motto of ours, is there's no problems, it's only solutions. So even this year with all the floods, and because we couldn't actually get onto a lot of our properties, so if we wanted to spray, we actually had to then get people with spray packs in to go in instead of, and we were talking like 10,000 trees planting. So it's a lot of hard yakka. And then because it was raining so much, so we had to then, if it was going to be a sunny weekend, I said, let's see if the contractors will come and plant on the weekend. So we then gave them an incentive of paying them extra on a Saturday or Sunday. And we had them, they were having, who went the longest time without having a day off. So it was 32 days straight. But these contractors, because they're really involved in the whole thing. And so, yes, they're getting paid, but they're working their butts off because they can see that something's happening here. So we've done 88 plantings on 67 properties across the 6 shires. And all of those plantings, from the very, very beginning, we were getting the knowledge from councils, ecologists, environmental scientists, bush regen people, nurseries, New South Wales Government, DPE. So we were working with all these people to make sure we're planting in the right place, we're planting the right trees. We have for each shire a list of the trees you should be planting, and then we obviously do site inspections. So you see what you should be planting and where you should be planting. And then wards, boring. Next, please. Oh, Pat put together this map of all the plantings we've done so far. So you sort of can get an idea of the corridor, and obviously there's a lot of blobs in that main bit where we started, and it's spreading. So that's just where we are up to today, but we are sort of going up and down and out. Next slide. So our 3-year project, as I said, is to plant 500,000 trees by the end of 2025. So that's 90,000 trees a year. So we know we can do that. I mean, I've already got the trees sorted. So New South Wales State Government, DPE, they've funded 50,000 trees for us next year. They did 50,000 this year. They actually, in June this year, Brendan from DPE said, Linda, do you want 80,000 koala trees? I'm like, no. Because we do a mix. It's never just koala trees. If it's in the red soil, it's koala trees and rainforest. It's in the black soil, then it's koala trees and other native species. And we're not just planting for koalas either. So we plant for the glossy black cockatoos. Peggy would be very happy because we plant obviously for the grey-headed flying foxes and for gliders and all sorts of stuff. Sorry, where am I up to? So yes, so next slide, sorry. Oh. And that was also at the I4 planting as well. Next slide, please. So our 3-year project is educational workshops as well. So we do landholder workshops where we have our ecologists and our bush regen people, and this is where we're trying to engage landholders to join our corridor. Then we also do koala health and habitat workshops in conjunction with Friends of the Koala, which Linda does because she's the expert. Hand up, Linda. And then my favourite is the kiddie workshops that I also do with Lola from Friends of the Koala, and we go to preschools and primary schools and we're educating the kids about what a healthy koala or a sick koala looks like, and you know, for them to get their parents and etc. And I get to dress up, hey, in my favourite koala suit, which I tell you the kids love. And so we're educating them, and we're trying to, those signs are the signs that we fund to get out and about. So if there's a koala being hit or anything like that, or people say we're worried about the, you know, it's koalas are getting, there's too many koalas in this area and we need to slow down the people. Oh, sorry, got to go. So yes, next. And next again. Oh yeah, keep going. These are just the end bit, and then the last bit. That was when we reached 200,000 trees earlier this year on a property out at Rock Valley. So all I've got to say to finish this up is that I can't imagine a world where there's no koalas. I can't imagine them being extinct. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that that doesn't happen. So if we can't save koalas, honestly, we can't save anything, because it's the most iconic animal in Australia and one of the most iconic in the world. And the world is watching us now. So we're not waiting for state or federal government to do things. We're going to do it right now on the ground. And the only thing that's going to stop us is a lack of funds. Thank you.